if we really saw ourselves the way that God sees us, I think we would all fall down in terror at how amazing the homeless guy on the street looks, our neighbors, our people at church, people at work. We would just be in awe. Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, overwhelmed Christians who don't want to live in franticity and instead want to live in freedom and abundance and peace. I'm Liz Ferris, and this is my husband, Evan.
Hello.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Yes, woohoo. This week we are talking about dignity, and since today's Friday, we're going to talk about being complete. Being complete means using your entire self to do something rather than being compartmentalized, and it means interacting with everything that's going on around you, what's actually happening rather than the past or the future.
Yeah, we're going to tie it all together today from stuff we've talked about earlier in the week, and I think what we're going to try to get at is responding well to what's really going on around. And we can't do that if we don't understand our own dignity and the people around us dignity. Like we said one of the earlier days in the week, like we don't earn dignity. It just is. It's part of being human. Right. We have dignity because we're made in the image of God. And we should be respected, and we should respect others.
Right, because if we don't have that, we're constantly off balance if we don't have that as our anchor point. And so we're constantly going to be grasping onto something. Like, we are designed to have dignity, and we're designed to be beloved. And when we don't have those things, our soul knows it, even if our brain doesn't know it. Mm-hmm. And so we're constantly like, oh, this person will make me feel better, like I'm a more important person, or, oh, if I do this, that means I'm a success, or, oh, this is my parents' definition of success, or this is my boss's, or my in-laws, or my spouse, or my kids, or whatever. And so we're constantly trying to prove ourselves to everybody out there, rather than having that self-worth that comes from who God says that we are. So it can be kind of frantic. Right.
And I think there's some other pitfalls too that just kind of have to do with our personality. There could be so speaking of boundaries, we could either be like a steamroller person who just crushes everybody's garden wall, or we could be a chameleon where we're just not interacting, and we're often we're withdrawn. So, everything in between too. But those are two extreme examples of not letting the image of God seep into us, so that we don't do those things, and then we're also hurting people around us by either
not listening to their no, or not ever saying no.
Yeah, we're either in their face wrecking stuff, or they don't even know we exist, and they could really benefit from a relationship with us, because we need each other. So we don't want to do that.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that I thought of when I was thinking about dignity and how we respond to other people was A Little Princess by Francis Hodgson Burnett, which, if you haven't read it, it's amazing. It's one of my very favorite books. It's actually the first book that I ever read as a kid.
It is a pretty amazing book. Just thinking about you reading it as a 4-year-old.
I was 5. What are you talking about?
Okay. Still.
Yes. It was one of those books that has stayed with me my entire life.
I think you can get it on LibriVox if you want to listen to it, or I'm sure you can get it from the library, but I'll try to put a link to that down below if you're interested in the book.
The main character, Sara, she believes that she should treat everyone like she's a princess. And she's extremely rich, and she goes to this finishing school.
She is really rich.
She is very rich.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Right, at the beginning, she's very rich.
Spoiler alert.
Her father dotes on her, yes. But he has to leave to go back to India. So she's in England, he's in India.
But she's not spoiled. She thinks princesses treat everyone with respect.
Right. She believes that a princess doesn't get drawn into arguments, but a princess also stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves and a princess gives to other, gives largesse to the population. And it's so amazing seeing the way that she hangs on to that. Because at first, she's rich and she's fairly popular, but some of the more popular girls are upset that she's taking their position. And so they make fun of her all the time for her princess ideas, And then her father dies and all the money is gone and she becomes basically a slave. I mean, she's a servant, but they don't feed her. They barely give her a place to live.
She's living in an orphanage now, right? Or a school?
She's still at the school.
Oh, okay.
But she's made to work for all the other pupils.
Oh, so the people that she knew before?
Right.
Yeah.
And some of them are
brutal.
pretty mean.
Yeah.
But she believes she's a princess. She pretends that she's a princess. She knows she's pretending. But she pretends she's a princess and she continues to treat them as though she were a princess. She still is polite and kind and, she takes care of the younger children. And there's this great scene where she hasn't eaten in 2 days or something like that. And she finds some money in the mud and she tries to go into this shop and return it. And they're like, if it's in the mud, it's yours. And it's a bakery. And so she buys buns to eat. And as she's walking out the door, she sees this homeless girl and she just can't not give her some because she's even hungrier than Sara is. And so she first gives her 2 and then she gives her 3 and then she finally just has 1 left for herself when she leaves. And
oh my goodness.
But it changes the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is she comes out and she's like, how many buns did that girl give you? And then when the homeless girl says, she's just like, well, if she can take care of homeless people, I should be doing it too. And so she actually takes this girl in, adopts her, and then she makes it a policy to give out free bread to other people who are just as hungry. But yeah, it's a really great story. And I love the way that she stays in that, she has that dignity regardless of when she's dressed in rags and she's hungry and she's cold and she's reviled by, all these different people and she's beaten, she's, all these different things where you would think she would break under it and start lashing out at the people around her.
Yeah.
But because she's so grounded in this identity of this is how a princess acts, I am going to act like a princess, she doesn't.
Yeah, that is amazing. She constantly is respecting people no matter what they do to her. And and if that's in a little girl's imagination, I know it's just a story, but we have the image of God in us, and so does every person that we meet.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
And if we actually understood how amazing and terrible all at once that is, I keep thinking about when the disciples see Jesus transformed and he's, clothed in light and they're just like, oh, totally freaked out, but also this is cool. And yeah, so if we really saw ourselves the way that God sees us, I think we would all fall down in terror at how amazing the homeless guy on the street looks, our neighbors, our people at church, people at work. Yeah. We would just be in awe.
Yeah. If we have Sarah's perspective, I don't know. I'm just imagining how much it could change our lives. Because we could really have that. And so those 2 extremes I mentioned earlier, those people, so the steamroller guy, he's going to be listening more and waiting a little bit before he acts. And I think, so then that's going to bring up an inner struggle that then we'll have to confess to God, but he's going to not feel, he's going to start feeling ignored because he's used to just barging in everywhere, right? But he's actually treating people with dignity and respect.
Right, and there's value in what people say. Mm-hmm. So he'll be able to say, there's value here, I want to get that value.
Yeah, just right. And then the chameleon person will need to speak up. And this is the one I identify with more, whereas I feel like I've been able to engage in my relationships better as I've learned, some of this stuff that we've talked about, CSC stuff and just relationship stuff in general, how, never offering anything of myself actually atrophies the relationship. And,
it does.
So, but, so then the struggle there is sometimes I feel like I'm rude when I'm just interjecting into the conversation or, because people get interrupted, there's crosstalk all the time. Right. I mean, we do it to each other and we still love each other. And that's just part of how talking goes sometimes. Sometimes people get cut off. But, I know I've got to engage in that and feel that tension in myself and not just give in. Because that's a lot, thinking that don't have anything worthwhile to say is one of those negative messages that we talked about earlier in the week. And I replace that with the dignity of God. But if I move in the image of God and in that dignity that I have for myself and the person I'm talking to, even if it feels like I'm being rude, that's just because I've been
suppressing forever.
Right. It's not really rudeness. And to the other guy, he's not really being ignored. But he might feel like it because he's so used to just being like the loudest person in the room and people have to pay attention to him. So anyway, I guess all that to say that as we move into this, I mean, it could cause some anxiety, but it's also good growing pains.
Hopefully that gives you guys something to think about. You are all princes and princesses, so let's try to act like it this weekend.
That's good. You should see how much Liz is smiling. I like that book too, and so did our kids. Mm-hmm. I would encourage you to check it out.
It's pretty awesome. We love you guys, and we are praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this podcast helpful, please do share it with your friends, relations, people that you meet on the street.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Please.
Also, if you have not taken our class yet, go look at it because it's pretty awesome. It's about setting up our year. We talk on the show about setting up railroad tracks so that we have those to snap back into to make our lives easier. That's what our class is about for this year.
And it's not too late to try to set up 2018 for success.
Totally.
We're still in the baby parts of the year. Yeah.
Yes.
Old man time's still a little baby. Doesn't he grow up into an old man every year?
I don't know.
Oh,
I guess you could argue it that way.
Anyway, next week on this podcast, we're going to be talking about community. That's one of our favorite topics. That's pretty much what we talk about every Thursday. So it's a whole week of Thursdays next week. Talking about connection, community.
And probably addiction, since the book is about addiction.
Probably. So come on back. That's always fun.
Yeah. Have an awesome weekend, you guys.
See you guys later.